Beautiful beings of light. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. And we have pure visionary Terry Lee and Key Guru Terry Suzuki, Sun Psychic Jean, Wisdom Seeker Joan, and my buddy Heather. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle today.
You didn't
So
introduce yourself.
it's great to, oh, I'm Priscilla.
Whoops.
And there's my phone. And I thought it was off. Sorry about that. So, hey, everybody out in Chatland, welcome. This is a monthly get together with us six ladies, and we pick a different subject and a different presenter every month. And if you're interested in knowing what the subjects are, they're in the description of this video and all the others that we have done. This is our 10th. Wow. So we started off the first of the year. So this is our 10th. We're each on our second subject. So exciting. And today it's all about reincarnation. And Miss Terry Lee is our presenter. So without further ado, hello, Miss Terry.
Well, thank you, Miss Priscilla. I want to start with saying, as always, I am honored and grateful to be here with all of you. You ladies are so amazing and so dear to me, and everyone out there in the chat as well. Thank you for coming and joining us. This is going to be an adventure that we're all going to share. I have to admit that when my time started to come near and I went, oh, I picked reincarnation. What was I thinking? It's kind of an interesting subject. Well, I have to say, Spirit's taken me on quite a journey with it. And I believe we're going to have some really lively conversation today. So the idea here is I'm going to be reading some slides and talking with you, but please, out there in the chat, we love to see your comments, and we'll be bringing those up occasionally as we're discussing. The ladies are all going to share, and we're just going to have a wonderful time together diving in to the information that Spirit's given us for this show today. All right, so let's get started. Reincarnation. I picked this slide because I realize that there are so many examples around us here in the world, on our planet, of life beginning anew, life passing and coming back anew. And now we're in the fall and the trees are dropping their leaves. Everything changes. It's all energy and it's all changing. So we're going to get a little bit into some details in this first slide.
I love the butterfly. I thought the butterfly was gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
And perfect for reincarnation, isn't it?
Yes. I have a thing for butterflies for that reason. They're so magical, aren't they? Yeah.
They are.
So what is reincarnation? Reincarnation is the belief that the soul or spirit begins a new life in a new body after biological death. The new body may be human, animal, or spiritual, depending on the moral quality of the previous life's actions. The first textual references to reincarnation appear in the Upanishads, which date back to the late Vedic period, 1100 BC. The Upanishads discuss the idea of the Atman, the soul, and the Brahman, ultimate reality, and how the two can be united. The concept of karma is also elaborated on. In Buddhism, karma refers to the principle of cause and effect, the result of an action, which can be verbal, mental, or physical. It's not determined by only the act, but also the intention. The major religions that believe in reincarnation are Asia religion, especially Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Okay, what other groups hold some sort of belief in reincarnation? Most American adults self-identify as Christians, but many Christians also hold what are sometimes characterized as New Age beliefs. Trust me, I tried to coin another phrase for that, and I couldn't think of it. I had to stick with that, and that's a little bit of an older term, but you get it, right? Including belief in reincarnation, astrology, psychics, and the presence of spiritual energy in physical objects like mountains or trees. Many Americans who are religiously unaffiliated also have these beliefs. Overall, roughly 6 in 10 American adults accept at least one of these New Age beliefs. Specifically, 4 in 10 believe in psychics, and that spiritual energy can be found in physical objects, while somewhat smaller shares express belief in reincarnation and astrology. So I'm going to pause right here because I wanted to explain my intention of just bringing these descriptions that I found in research and expressing the idea that all of us have particular beliefs that we have learned about and adhered to. And then often we have our own perception or something that resonates with us or doesn't resonate with us. So I'm curious as to what some of you other ladies have to say about your particular resonance with reincarnation. And I would say that's in the instance of, do you believe it's all related to karma, or do you believe that that people reincarnate as animals because of karma, that sort of thing? So let's have at it, ladies.
Can I
Who's
take down
start?
the can I take the slide down?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
Well, well, I
Yay.
believe I believe in reincarnation. Um, not only do I believe in reincarnation, I think you're going to get to choose. Um, People might have a hard time believing this, but my dad came back as a cat for a little while. Cats have very short lives. He lived with me again as a cat and then went on to his next job. Um, so I think that it's probably a lot more broad than we think. You know, maybe not just as simple as going from life to life.
Mhm.
I have to agree
Yeah,
with that.
I do too. I do too, Terry. Um,
Definitely.
I believe our freedom of choice is vast. Jean.
Mhm.
I think that it's a I think the way that we're phrasing it may not be as accurate with the way that the other religions believe in reincarnation. I don't know if it's that or if they don't have programming and dogma and mandates telling them that that's no such thing. Like there's nothing written saying that that's not the case. So they've always known. It's almost like it's a natural
Exactly.
state or a natural understanding or a natural knowing. And then
Mhm.
when we are taught by our families about this situation, and it's handed down and programmed into the generations that it's not so, whereas those other groups who have it in their everyday religions and in their everyday life never had that. So I don't know if it's actually a belief or if it's the absence of programming, or that we had programming, or that we
Well, they
had.
had their own programming. That if they're a religion, it's programming, no matter whether it's Eastern or Western, it's still a type of programming. That's what they grew up with, so that's their programming.
Well,
Ours
are
was
we programmed?
programmed
Are we
off.
programmed to breathe in and out? I mean, I think it's just a very natural state. Like we know that we breathe, we know that we are born, we know that we die, and that we know that we reincarnate. I don't know that it was a program. It was just an understanding that they knew instinctively and was not, taught out of them or presented in a different way. Does that make sense?
I
Mhm,
think you're both saying the same thing.
mhm.
Yeah.
In that you're saying it was perhaps an inner knowing, and certainly Priscilla's point is correct too, because I do believe, just like we were perhaps raised in one religion, um, we had an inclination and a curiosity to learn about things that were outside the boundaries of our religion. And then at some point, we resonated with it. So I would say, even if I had been raised a Buddhist, maybe they're like we all do. We all research and try to see if something resonates with us or not. So I think we all go through that process. And isn't that amazing?
Yeah. I was going to say that they never mentioned anything in any of the church stuff that I remember going to about reincarnation. And yet it always seemed to be there. And it was always like, oh, well, I've been here before. Not in this lifetime, but but I recognize something. So I think I'm with you guys where it's just always there, but nobody talks about it. Nobody ever mentioned it. And if you start to talk about it, you're hushed.
Frequently, yes.
Yeah, frequently. So, yeah, I agree that it's there. And I don't know why we're all aware of it because nobody talks about it until we get to where we are.
I don't know. It was talked about in my family. My father did past life regression, so he was definitely into reincarnation. The Episcopal Church that I went to, they didn't agree with it. But then we go back to remove text from the Christian Bible and all that nonsense. But I've gone through periods where I didn't understand about coming back as an animal. I've always believed in reincarnation. Now I think of it more as simultaneous lives rather than reincarnation. I think more of it is just an adjacent timeline. I'm just doing something else.
You just have a fractal someplace else.
I never felt solid with the karmic relation saying that someone had to come back and be a spider because they lived a terrible life. That I
didn't make sense
with
to
it's
me.
our choice.
But now I understand from Dolores Cannon's works that we start out as lower beings and work our way up to humanity. And that makes more sense to me to start out as a spider or snake or whatever and or a rock even and get those experiences. That resonates with me. If we start out as dirt first and then go to microbes or whatever, yeah, that makes sense.
I'm pretty sure I was
eventually quantum human.
And growing up or living in Minnesota, where it gets very cold in the wintertime, I've always felt like, why do we think that we're the only species that doesn't die and come back to life, if not every year, in every lifetime? It just seems so natural that we're all on this cycle. And I do, remember, I think some of my experiences are mainly experiential of the feeling when you meet somebody that you've met with before in a past life, and that it's just so apparent.
Yeah,
it's like a hand
too much about each other, not for it not to be.
Yeah, and it just feels so familiar. But I do remember the family psychic that I used to see from my early 20s on. When I would ask her about past lives, she'd say, "Well, yeah, it's true, but you're here now in this big game, and you need to focus on this." So I haven't given a huge amount of thought to all the specifics of it, but I think over the years, so it's become so much more part of common parlance that it's in the media and people are much more comfortable talking about it. And it seems almost odd not to believe in it now. So that's my viewpoint.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that fantastic
really is.
that we really have grown that much?
Yes.
It's almost as if you could tell that the whole planet is elevating because we're all beginning to talk about certain things like reincarnation. Or we haven't talked about it before, but there's always been silence around it. And now everybody's beginning to talking about it, which says to me that everybody's raising their consciousness.
Yes. And very good point. Very good point, Heather. That's so true. Okay. Well, do we have any comments that you've seen pop up, ladies, that are about this subject? Thank you, Jean. Hi, Linda. Linda De Gonzalez. Same here. Wisdom Seeker Joan. Never was very interested. I always thought I should focus on what was in front of me.
If I can add to that, what I have learned is that sometimes I've had a couple past life readings, and you can get those V8 moments. It's like, oh, that's why I'm not all that interested in learning about, oh, I was the queen of this or whatever. But when I had a past life or a reading with Bob Bruges, and it explained a lot of my family dynamics with my husband and son. And other times too, where you'd kind of go in with a question and it's like, oh, that explains why I'm behaving this way. So it gives you more tools to apply to this life. And I think
Absolutely.
it's
It's a
really
wonderful
valuable that
tool.
way. Mhm.
Once you get over, oh my God, I was in Egypt.
Or-
or oh my God, I was in Atlantis.
Or,
It's
oh my
hard.
God, as I was told, I was a pedophile. And
Right,
because we've
yeah.
all been everything.
Everything.
That one was a jaw dropper, but
You know, one thing that the guides gave me actually when I was curious about my past lives was that just look around your house and see the things that you're attracted to or you have a natural attraction for. And, you know, I have Celtic crosses, I've got an Indian painting, I love the Native Americans, I have a whole wall full of that.
Total
Um,
eclectic thing. Me
Mm.
too.
Buddhists, tons of Buddhas everywhere in my house, every kind. So that's kind of a hint too. Something that you have an attraction to might be familiar to you. And that's, oh, and we'll get into that. That's how your past lives can kind of bleed into your life now.
Yeah, that's kind of like me and my piano. I won't go without it. I always keep it. And yet I know that I had a past life that the piano figured very strongly.
Uh-huh. That's
So,
cool.
you know,
Okay.
it
Cool.
does explain a lot of stuff.
It does. It does.
Oh,
Okay, well,
that's why I know all of his music, you know.
cool.
Jane, do you have another comment that you'd like to put up or should we move on? Or anyone, if you saw a comment.
So
Hey.
Amanda Carroll says, I do love the mystery of it all. And that's, I think, what is very common amongst all of us as well. The mystery, you know, the
Mhm.
unraveling, the getting to the truth and, you know,
Remembering.
yeah,
Yes. Mhm.
remembering. Yeah.
And I
So I
think it can give you a great peace too. Just being able to explore and know that you're safe in entertaining these things and seeking with your guides as to what you can be taught about them. So I think that's great. All right. Well, I'm going to dive into this because I found this and thought that this would probably bring some pretty interesting conversation today. We have 12 mind blowing facts from scientists who study reincarnation. And the first one of those is 33% of Americans believe in reincarnation. I was actually kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I thought more than that.
I thought more too. Now, this is I have to state this, the Pew Institute. This research is coming from them. So there you go. 65% more people believe in reincarnation now compared to 20 years ago. There you go. So that backs up what we've just been discussing. 36% of Catholics believe in reincarnation, and 70% of people who remember a past life remember dying a violent or unnatural death. And that's kind of that bleed through that I was talking about a little bit earlier, how we can have things that happened in our past life stay with us. Ladies, would you like to comment on any of these 4 mind-blowing facts?
I have one for number 4.
Okay.
One of my past life regressions, I was a toddler in a brownstone of some sort. I'm thinking it was New York City in maybe the 30s or 40s. And my
Okay.
older sister was my mother. And I
Wow.
crawled out a window and fell to my death.
Oh,
And there was still some car when I went to Bob Bringes, Akashic
Mhm.
Bob. It was
Akashic Bob.
interesting that I still had I had to forgive my sister for that. But what was interesting is I've always been terrified of heights.
Mm.
And in this life, my sister took over taking care of me basically when my younger sister was born. She kind of became my mother as my mother was ill and had problems, so she couldn't deal with the baby and the rest of the kids, and me being the youngest at that point. And I was always a little mini me to my older sister. So she
Wow.
became like a surrogate mother in this life. And I totally related to that past life.
Wow, that's
And my
fascinating.
fear of heights all but disappeared after that reading.
That is beautiful.
Mm.
All right. Anybody else have a comment? Okay.
Wow.
We'll move on.
Okay.
Oh, did you have something to say?
No, I was just trying to find something.
Oh, okay. Okay, number 5. 9% of people who remember a past life exhibit an unusual skill related to that former life, which is not hard to argue with at all, is it? 35% of people who remember dying accidentally in a past life have an extreme fear of dying the same way again.
Mm. Yep.
Also, not surprising. 26% of people who remember a past life demonstrate some other form of ESP. Mm. That's actually kind of pretty high.
It
Number
is.
8.
Yeah.
20% of people who remember a past life believe they'd lived as a deceased family member. Yeah. And number 9, 58% of people who remember drowning in a past life have an extreme fear of water. Yeah. And that's, wow, 58%.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna. Yeah, I was gonna say the people dying by accident, and that's number 6 and number 9. It's not me, but a friend of mine was deathly scared of water, being on the ocean, and it turns out that she had drowned in a crossing, and so it was very logical
Yeah.
for her to be afraid like that.
mm,
But I was kind of surprised.
it's interesting, isn't it? My
Mhm.
younger sister had a terrible fear of water. And my mother had a terrible fear of suffocation. She had claustrophobia, pretty
Yeah,
serious.
that was my mom too.
Mm.
Yeah, my mother had claustrophobia. She didn't like that Channel Bridge. We took that Channel Bridge from England to France, and she hated every minute of it. Every
Ah,
minute of it. She was
It's an
terrified.
enclosed space. I was
Mhm.
always surprised my mom could go through the tunnels going into New York City,
mm,
as claustrophobic as she was.
ah,
Well, here's some other people that have some worries, like Craig Dixon. He says he's afraid of heights and fire.
fire.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Hypnicity says she's afraid of suffocating.
Yeah. Yeah. That claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Mm.
Amanda says fear of heights.
Mm-hmm.
Lark had a question.
I'm not sure that we're answering questions.
Well, it had to do with the subject, so
Oh. Okay.
Oh, but that was about something above, so we can get to that later.
Yes, we
okay.
will. Okay, ladies, any other comments here on the panel?
I just think it's really logical to, and a simple explanation that it's from our past lives, and that's the reason for this unusual fear that is not like within the whole community, you know.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to you. That's
Right.
out of the ordinary. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's amazing. We have these things, and everybody thinks, oh, that's common. Somebody might have an unusual fear, but we don't really think, oh, that's a past life immediately. That's another thing that's kind of coming into a common idea now, as Heather was talking about earlier, now that things are being revealed and people are accepting certain religious beliefs or other beliefs that are outside of their religious circle. Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on. Okay. Uh-oh. Come on, slide 3. There we go. There it is. Uh-oh. Well, let's go back. Okay. So we're just going to kind of review what we just talked about. I like the ESP thing. That's kind of interesting too. All right. Number 10. 23% of people who remember a past life believed they once lived as a different gender. 20% of people who remember a past life also remember something from the time between death and rebirth. And 2% of people who remember a past life and accurately describe their previous funeral.
Wow. I'm not sure I want to know that.
I don't think I've ever looked into it.
No.
Well, I have to say, on number 10, I didn't have to remember a past life to have that feeling. I've had that, and that's kind of just part of my psychic strangeness, I guess. My high strangeness, that I've had feelings like I had been a male, and just that feeling and that understanding of what it's like. Anybody else have that? Just
Me.
yeah, right, Terry.
So the past, I've seen a couple past lives of mine. The past life right before the one I've had now, I was a male. I was an Irish farmer, and um, it makes sense because I have always been a tomboy. I feel more comfortable with a tool in my hand, cutting something down or
Yes.
drilling something than doing something very, women's work. And it just kind of makes sense that I
Yeah.
don't feel super comfortable in a woman's body, but there I am. I'm here. Uh, yeah, so that really speaks to me that if you've been a past life in a different body, it does sometimes feel a little uncomfortable in the next one. And I also think these lives are speeding up. I think it used to be that it took more time between them, and now they're happening a little faster. And so we're remembering maybe a little bit more. Yeah, but definitely I was a man in the last one and a man in other ones too. I was a gay man in one. It was the fabulous life.
I love that.
Love it. All
I've had
right.
a couple of past lives that I was male as well. One was an Egyptian, and the other was a jazz musician. A
Ooh,
total worthless life. But
scoundrel?
Oh, he was such a scoundrel. He was. Yes.
That's wild. What about you other ladies?
I know that I've been a male before, but all the past lives that I have remembered or been told about so far are female.
Oh,
But I know that I have been male. Evidently, I didn't do as remarkable things as a man as I did as a female. I don't know.
How about you, Jean?
Well, I definitely remembered some of each, and I think that the soul is not genderless but gender fluid, and that the soul you know, you could either be a very soft-spoken man or a very outspoken woman, but it doesn't mean it just doesn't mean as much as what we put our identity on. I think it's again, it's society, it's expectations, it's, you
Mhm.
know, traditions, but as far as the male and the female, as far as the strength of the body and the ability to do a certain type of work is a natural instinct. Just like, you know, some animals don't climb trees and other animals do. It's because of their, you know, what attributes they have in their physicality that allows them to do that. But but it's interesting that the soul can transcend and visit each and every different type of scenario, like the gay man or the strong
Mhm.
woman, or you know, or a
Mm.
scoundrel. You know, that's the hardest thing for all of us to believe, is that we were once, you know, what we all you know, look down upon right now. But it's important to understand that everything is part of the whole. You know, we are all one. We all are here at it, the dichotomy and the balance of good and evil,
Mhm.
or you know, it's just all necessary. It's really it's a deep, deep subject for sure.
Hey,
It
we've all
is.
been everything.
That's
We're here to experience it, so we've had to experience it
yeah.
all. Male, female, good, bad. I'm
Mhm.
It doesn't bother me that in a past life I was good or bad, as long as I'm a good person right now. I don't really care what I was back then, as long as I speak with my heart and think with my heart now. That's all.
Mhm. Well, let me ask you all a question then. This just occurred to me. Supposedly, I've had equal lives as a man and a woman, and yet I know I prefer to be a woman. I don't know why. Maybe it's just more fun. But do you believe that our life choices? So we have a life review. We learn from each life that we live, and then we have these choices the next time we come around that we go through with our guides, and they recommend, and we basically create this new life and have a look at it and decide if that's what we want to do. Do you think that we gravitate lifetime after lifetime more to what we want, what we feel more comfortable with? In other words, you might have had a couple of lifetimes as a very angry, negative, terrible person, and you have your life review, and you see that, and you felt that, and you've experienced it, and then maybe for your next life, you're like, well, I want to be a more understanding, kind, yeah, loving person, who's friendly, that sort of thing. Do you feel like that is involved in our life choices? Do we
I,
upgrade? Do we upgrade? Let me
I think so.
I think we upgrade. I think we go through a process of being everything at one particular time or another, so that we have the experience from both sides,
Yes.
and try to make sure that we're balanced. But I can see where if there's something you really liked, you wanted to do with that again, I can see where that could be incorporated. But I
Yeah.
also know that the main reason we come back is to learn. So
Mhm.
we we're going to have our learning experiences.
I think that's what it has a lot to do with, in as far as I'm concerned, is the lessons and the experience. It's not what we like or what we don't like, what we enjoy or have preference for. It's the experience of the soul expanding. It's the lessons. It's the evolution of our soul, so that when we go back to the other side as souls, we have gained this experience which enriches our soul. And it may be necessary to go down as a very terrible person, and have that experience in order for us to have this regret and this understanding of, you
Mhm.
know,
Learning compassion.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So I think the lesson and our soul's growth and evolution is paramount, not what we kind of like to have long hair, or if we don't like to, we like to wear boots or something, you know.
Yeah. No, I was just referring to maybe having an upgrade in the sense that as we learn, we take the things that we learn and maybe incorporate them in our next life so that we can, you know,
I'm
affect
sure we
more
do.
other lives and souls.
I don't know how we could do otherwise.
Yeah.
I think
Great.
you're exactly right. But the next life might not be what we as people on this plane might think of as better.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
lots of people believe that people who are very advanced souls, who have had many, many lifetimes, they might be the ones who come back and decide to have a really difficult life, to have lifelong disability. And it's about not only providing an opportunity for other people to learn compassion and grace. So it's not like, oh, if I do a good job here, well, then I'll get a job with a
No.
lot of money and a mansion on a hill. I might have the opportunity to be in a really tough life.
Very well said. Very
Yeah.
well said, Joan.
Mhm.
Terry?
I agree with you so much, Joan, there, because I feel like the more and more I'm doing readings, like at the fairs and in person and in all the different interactions I have with people in this community, I kind of think that we might have this upside down, that those people that did so well in this life, and maybe those are not the more advanced souls, because I've seen where that you know it's the other way around. The people that are that chose a really challenging one with maybe addictions or disabilities, that these are actually the higher souls that are coming in to experience a really tough life, to learn
Mhm.
something.
It makes sense.
Absolutely. I
Yep.
agree with that completely. Yeah. And the ascended masters are examples. I
Mhm.
mean,
Of
they
hard
didn't
lives.
they didn't all come in as rock stars, so
Yeah.
fascinating. Well, what do we have out there in the chat?
Oh,
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Can you see the starred ones, Jean?
Hypnicity says, I'm trying to observe all things without judgment. It's not always easy. That's right. That's
Very
right.
good.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And Lori says, I always find these conversations so interesting. This is only my second life on earth. The last time I was here 7,000 years ago. I wonder how people do what they do. Lori,
That's
fascinating.
fascinating.
It is. You're a newbie.
Wow.
A newbie. That's great.
And Fern says, I think our souls learn from duality, so we try to
Yeah.
experience all perspectives. That's right.
Exactly.
I think you're right.
Set. Yes. Awesome.
Yep. And then I think I'm going out of the conversation. Lark says, we are all here to taste all the flavors of life, love, pain, joy, hate, everything. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
We don't like to think about it, but that's
That's what we're here for.
I
And
like this one too.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, that's exactly the one I was going to click next. Very good, hypnicity. Excellent. Perfect way to phrase that. That's wonderful. All right. Well, time is just slipping away, so we're going to get in deep now. Okay. By acknowledging and releasing past life trauma, can we begin to heal and recover in our current lives? Okay. So I have this to start with, and then we'll go around and create some more beautiful conversation. The possible benefits of past life regression therapy. Many people who undergo past life regression report feeling a sense of deep connection to their past selves, as well as a greater understanding of their current life and relationships. Some individuals even report physical or emotional healing as a result of past life regression. As in all ways of spirit, it's best to trust your own discernment. Well, we have several members here that have had past life if not all. I'm not sure.
Probably all of us.
Probably all of us.
So what do you say, ladies?
Yeah,
Let's-
that's definitely. And, a couple of pages back, when you said that we can remember in between lives, it reminded me of a lot of those children that there's a TV show or a cable show or something that the children remember. Yes, mommy, God, I was in heaven with God, and mommy, I chose you, and I was in a fire before, and I chose you and daddy, and I had to wait for you and daddy, and you finally got together. And these kids, it comes out of the mouths of babes, and that they're remembering and freely sharing these things. I think that it's
That's
just
fascinating.
yeah,
and revealing, I believe some.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember the story of the young boy who said he crashed in an airplane, and his father actually tracked it down, and everything he said was absolutely accurate. I think those things that are allowed to come, those people that are allowed to come through with those memories, are advancing our knowledge here. As we talked about, more and more people are believing in reincarnation. I think that's one of the reasons.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree.
wow, yeah.
So,
And
Craig had a comment.
Yeah, he says Christian Kaut, I don't know who this person is, remembers his death, his mom, his career, and places his team played in. Memories started at 5 years old. I think up above earlier, he said something about this person,
He did.
but I
Yeah.
don't know where that is. Sorry.
Yeah. It was a person who remembered, I think, being Lou Gehrig. And
Yes,
there's a
that's
book
right.
written about it.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
I think now that we have more access to data, I mean, through quite a few centuries, we've been writing things down, but we didn't necessarily have access to it. But now we have access to it, and I think it's easier to kind of track these things down and find out if it's the truth
Yes,
or
validation.
close to the truth as we can remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think a lot of people that step out and are willing to tell about their recollections are receiving a lot less controversial statements in return now that more people are saying, "Wow, that's really great," and perhaps that's how especially with the children that are born with talents as well. It's amazing, and it's kind of becoming common knowledge now that that had to come with them from a past
That's
life.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's been so much research too, like even Dolores Cannon, look at all the research that she would do on the information she would receive. She would go and validate everything that they said wherever possible.
Mhm.
Right.
So, and she wrote 25 books that have been out there for the last few years. So, and
What an
people
amazing woman.
I know, but every little bit of that helps
Yeah, it sure does.
informing the public. Yeah. And it
She's
is a
the
lot more
grandmother.
mainstream.
She's the grandmother of wisdom, opening that all up for so many generations, really.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
It really
great.
was.
And and it speaks to everybody even now, even though she's not here.
Oh, yes.
So
So High Vibin had something to say about past life regression.
Whoops, I got the wrong one. Ah,
Oh, that was it.
yeah, that was it.
That was it.
okay, but it keeps going away.
Oh, you
I-
want me to get it?
you-
Yeah,
I'll get it. There you go.
thank you.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? That's great.
she says my past life session really helped me understand myself more. It was astounding.
Thank you.
And
Jean.
you are astounding, High Vibe. And thanks for
High
joining.
vitamin is astounding.
Wonderful. Well, ladies, now I know we've had some past life regression. I had mine on Saturday, so it's a little fresh, but feel free to tell us about some of the things that you you received from your past life regressions?
Well, I had an experience. It wasn't actually a past life regression that keeps coming forth, and it was about the those who are survivors have the best life, or that's one of their last lifetimes. The highest calling is to be a survivor. And I told a couple of the ladies here, but there was a gentleman in a wheelchair, and he was like a vegetable. He couldn't talk, couldn't walk, couldn't eat, couldn't, he was
Yeah.
totally dependent on his family around him. And he was with several ladies and some young girls, and they had taken him out on a walk to a gas station to get some treats at the gas station. And, they're just girls, they're standing around and they're chatting. And I'm like pumping my gas, and I keep like looking over saying, it feels like somebody's like calling my attention, or that something is reaching my attention. And I thought I heard somebody talking, like greeting me or something. And I'm like, what is that? And here the girls step away, and I see this gentleman in a wheelchair, that he's not able to speak or eat or walk or anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, his soul, his energy was so big. It was like larger than the circle of girls. And he could tell that
Wow.
I could hear him. And I was just so stunned. And I'm like, they're pumping my gas and not realizing what's going on. And it took me a while for it to sink in, to understand that was probably his soul's energy reaching out to me. And I just thought, what is this? There's something's weird going on. I didn't know what it was until after the fact that they had moved away. But I thought, if I ever do bump into the family again, and I'd like to offer maybe some, and they may not even need it. They may be able to tell what he needs as he needs it, because their intuition, just like
Mhm.
we do with other nonverbal members of our family. But I just thought that was amazing, how big and how large his soul was. And it made me think, when Joan said that it may be one of his last lifetimes before going to an ascended master type of level, because he's done it all. And this is the highest form of lifetime, to live and to learn compassion and allow others to have compassion.
Mhm.
But it was really a unique experience, and it just kept coming up when you were talking about all of this.
Wow, Jean, thanks for sharing that with us. That's wild. That's really
That
beautiful.
is a wild, yeah, beautiful.
All right. Priscilla, you have something you want to share with us?
Well, like I said, the one that really had the big impact was the child that crawled out the window, because I had been afraid of heights all my life, and bridges, bridges. 7 Mile Bridge in the Keys killed me the first time I drove over it.
Oh, bless
But
you.
now it doesn't bother me at all. So that was pretty amazing. Um, I don't know what the lesson was. The one in well, I just got the actually I just got the lesson in it that it was telling me we were immortal. I was an Anunnaki, a giant in Egypt, and was
Ooh.
standing on the steps of a building. I don't know what it was, but big steps with columns, and I was a giant. Now I know I was an Anunnaki. I didn't know at the time. I just knew I was a giant, and I was watching the gold capstone being put on the pyramids,
Wow.
levitated
Yeah.
from a, levitated from a UFO. And I believe the lesson there was that we are immortal. We've been here forever. We're going to
Yeah.
be here forever. You don't go anywhere. You just change. The energy just changes form.
Wow. I have to ask. So did you feel, what did it feel like to be an Anunnaki?
I felt like I was more of a priest of some sort,
Uh-huh.
because it was very reverent, but I felt big and huge and powerful. But
Wow.
not just physical power, spiritual power,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
energetically, I just felt huge.
Wow.
Um,
That's great.
but it was very brief.
Uh-huh.
It was very. Oh, I just remembered another one. I was standing in Paris. I really am not a visual person, and when it happens, it's very impactful because I feel things, I know things, but I rarely see things.
Mm.
And I was actually standing in burning Paris, World War II. I was a Nazi, uh, not Nazi, the Gestapo, I believe. And my daughter was standing next to me, but she was not, who I knew was my daughter, was standing next to me as my adjunct. What do you, my right hand man. And she was standing on my left, but she was my right hand man. And we were watching Paris burn. And it was a message about apparently we raped and pillaged our way through Europe during the Second World War. I must have been very high in rank because I had this person next to me that was
Mm.
um, my person, and it was actually that it was talking about how the karmic debt had been paid for that rampage, and it was only probably 10 or 15 seconds long, but boy, I could smell the smoke, I could feel the heat, the oppression, all of that, and I was a very bad person, apparently.
Oh.
That but that's all right. Like I said, it had told me that I didn't have to worry about that karma anymore. That karma had been paid back by both of us.
Wow.
So that was good.
Yeah, that's good.
That was good.
Wow, that's great. How about
That
you?
was a really intense one. I mean, who wants to be thought of as a Nazi?
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Heather?
Um, I was thinking when we were listening that I need to listen to the tape that was made again because when you go into hypnosis, you don't, at least I don't remember. So I don't think I was really out for the first time. And that was not a successful endeavor, but a lot of questions were answered and explanations of why things are the way they are when I went through the hypnosis one. And that,
QHHD?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But unless I listened to the tape several times, I didn't get it,
Yeah.
because
Sometimes
you
you have
don't remember it.
no.
The one that I do remember was not a successful healing.
Yeah.
It was healed. I was healed by the next person I saw.
Good. Good.
So I'm glad that you can do that. Whoever shows it to you is not necessarily the one that has to.
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah.
Joan, how about you?
Well, when we were talking about how different places can kind of speak to you, I've always been drawn to France and had a couple of readings where not regressions, but that's come up. And I always knew that and I have remembered on my own a lifetime in World War II. And I always thought, oh, that's why I like all the novels about those plucky women and, from Britain or something in World War II, kind of like saving the day. And had some experiences when I went over there. But one thing that happened fairly recently, I think it was in 2017 when Notre Dame burned, I had a huge reaction to that. And it felt
Yeah.
like this is the start of the end of Western civilization. It was like there was a big circular hole in my gut. It hit me, it was a
Wow.
horrible thing to happen, but it hit me harder than normal. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, I've always liked France and everything, but it just seemed odd. And it wasn't until recently that someone said, oh, you weren't Joan of Arc, but you were one of her devotees.
Oh,
And and had witnessed what happened to her, and that helped not only explain the Notre Dame experience, but why I've been sort of, I really want to develop my abilities as a psychic medium, but I've been a little more reticent than a lot of other people. And it's like, of course, I understand that women named Joan who get into this business
Die.
don't always turn out really well. So that's like, okay, now I get it. So I'm hoping that that will take some of that onus off and let me go forward. And other people in other readings have said, yeah, you've done this before, and your soul is kind of asking, do you really want to do this again? And now I understand where that's coming from. So I think that's one of the ways that it's helping me in this life to understand what
That's
happened.
really good because, that has happened to so many of these people in this community that we've been burned at the stake or drowned or whatever.
Right.
Because we've had gifts in many lives and it hasn't turned out well
Right.
for us. So I think that's a good one to bring up because I think it's common amongst these type of people.
Yeah, you don't want to make waves.
Yeah.
Just kind of be invisible.
Right.
Interesting.
I noticed T. Barb had the same reaction.
Yes. I can't wait. I think it's supposed to be opened in January of 2025, something like that.
Oh, good.
And I want to go back. I have to go back now.
That seems
So-
amazing that they've done that work so
Yes.
quickly. They
So
finished
fast.
that. All right. Terry, what you got?
Oh, well, I've been thinking, I know a few of them here. Which one's the right one? Well, I've seen myself as an Eskimo woman. And when it was a hypnotic regression, and I came in right in the middle when I was already old, and how that my tribe took care of me, how I took care of the tribe, how that I think my question had been kind of about why do I feel so lazy recently, and it's like they were trying to tell me it's not laziness, but sometimes we have a life that is called to duty, and sometimes duties are not always as fun as you think they're going to be. So the Eskimo woman, she had to prepare the boat landing for when they brought the seals or whatever they caught, had to prepare where they're going to hang the meat when that they butcher it. And at one point they did take me back when I was a kid, and I was taking a bucket to the men who were cutting the fat, so that it was something that the whole tribe would be eating all over the winter. And I was angry because it was such low work. I like, how come the boys get to do stuff and exciting because I was a boy? And how come I have to do this? And they gave me a talking to, man. They're like, this may seem unimportant, but it's important. You have to take this back or we might not survive. You have to do these things. They have to do the things they're doing. You have to do the things you're doing. And in that same regression, they took me to another life in Italy, where that I was part of a family that was like a street performers. And again, sometimes I had jobs I didn't like. It wasn't fun always to be when I was a little kid having the hat going around trying to get people to give. But that was my job because I was a cute little kid. They're going to give money for the cute little kid, but not, to the old crone that's walking around. So it was just an interesting take on service and why that we have to sometimes accept service, a life of service, rather than a life of notoriety and fun.
Yeah.
Might explain why you've worked in nonprofits, which is
Could
going
be.
with the hat sometimes.
Oh, there you
Exactly.
go.
Going with your hat.
I might be very good holding that hat.
Wow, Joan. Good observation.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, as I said, I just had my past life regression on Saturday. And I just want to point out how interesting it was how Spirit worked this out. I just found this woman and made an appointment with her, and it just happened to be a couple days before I had to do this presentation on reincarnation. I was like,
I love it.
tricky.
Divine timing as always.
Interesting. And I was given the opportunity to ask 5 questions. I'm still processing, and you just listen to a little bit at a time and you process and process. But a couple things stood out. As far as lifetimes, I got to visit the water planet, which was super awesome. It was just amazing. Just brilliant crystallized water. I don't think I was a human form, but I didn't really get to see exactly what it was, just this kind of stuff. And I got to do that. And then I had an experience. The only thing I can call it is like the watcher in the woods. I was a woman that lived outside of the village. I didn't like the negative people in that village, and the men especially. Ooh, who were very cruel. So I graduated out, and apparently I distributed medicines and herbs to help people, and they would come bring me like a loaf of bread or something like that. And I had, I, I think it was a dog, but it kind of looked like a wolf. It was a big, beautiful white dog and a donkey. And I lived a life of basically isolation, but sharing with people and loving the people that came to me for needs, and so a helper kind of lifetime. But I asked a lot of spiritual questions. I don't know. I'm curious, right? So I remember when I first heard Anita Morjani's story about when she had her past life, uh, or when she had her near death experience. And she talked about seeing all of her lifetimes happening all at once, like they were in a giant apartment building made of glass. So, that's always been something I like to contemplate. Is that how does that go? That was one of my questions. And during this regression, I knew this before I went in, that I would be talking to my higher self. Basically, that's pretty much who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And so, in answer to that question, I'm going to see, like I said, it's been a short while, but I'm going to try to put this together. In essence, yes, but there is no time. There is no time. So, everything that we experience and reflect to the Creator is contained and is held
Now.
in sacred reference, in sacred, how do I say it? Just a sacred keeping of all of our observations and learning in all of our lives. That is kept by your higher self. And I was told that in meditation and in seeking your guides, you can access that information anytime. And it was almost like they were saying, you can do this. You can also do it through the Akashic records. And those were given basically for our enlightenment and use. So it is really just like a giant library, and we can learn from our lives there. But so in a sense, there is no time. So they are all there. And that includes future lives. I'm pretty sure that's what was said. So I just love it. It's like exploring outer space, isn't it?
Really is.
We're learning some amazing things, and life is good. Do we have any comments from anybody? All right, thank you,
So
Lark.
Lark said he remembered Viking when he shook hands with someone that night. He's seen him reaching up to the sky, and the lightning in the right hand was when he became a seer. He
Wow,
said, that was my first remembering of a Viking. And he said, I have not been the same since that day. Wow.
that's super cool.
That's
Wow,
powerful. Yep.
that's
That's
very
really
Yep.
powerful.
And he wants to thank us all, or thank everybody, for being his teacher. Isn't that sweet?
That's
Thank you.
beautiful.
That is sweet.
Yeah. No, that when he says I have not been the same since that day, that's a paradigm shift, and that's an awakening, and that's a
Mhm.
enlightenment. That's all of it all together.
It really is. Mhm.
Right. Boom. Yeah.
And T-Barb says she doesn't want to come back, but maybe she'll change her mind once she crosses.
You never know.
It is hard to say. That was one question. That was not one I got answered in this regression, but that was one I considered. Like, am I done? But who knows? There is no time.
Yeah.
So we may chill for a considerable part of eternity before we decide to come back. But there's always a purpose, and that's the thing that's beautiful.
And we may not come back here. We may go somewhere else.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like the water planet. You guys should check that out. Seriously.
That sounds fun.
That was a very visual, and I could feel it. I could just feel it in my body. It was amazing. All right. Hi, vibing.
She says, I've had other past life remembrance during times of meditation. It's spontaneous, and I believe my higher self shows me them when I need to learn something else about myself. It's super amazing. My Germany one was like that. It was just during meditation.
Mm-hmm. I believe that's what my higher self was trying to explain to me in that description of all of our lives being available to us at once. Thank you.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So Terry, are you really drawn to swimming in water?
I love water. And I was a wakeboarder in this lifetime, which I love. And I would always, it's an interesting thing. I always had this thing. I did it when I was snowboarding too. And I don't know. I would get up on the wakeboard and crystal clear glass, huge mountains all around me. And I'd be like, okay, God, let's go. I've always had the feeling someone was with me or witnessing it or experiencing it through me. Have you guys ever had that? It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with snowboarding when I was standing on the top of Mount Baldy and looking out over just this expanse of the Sawtooth Mountains. And I'd be like, okay, God, let's go. And just felt like I was taking someone with me, So yeah, I do love water. I love it.
Cool.
Okay. Well, do we have another comment, or are we ready to start calling it end of the show, ladies? How are you feeling?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Good. It was a great presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
Wonderful
really
job.
enjoyed
Wonderful job.
thank
And
you. all
wonderful
did a
job in the
wonderful job.
chat too. Thanks,
Yeah.
chat. We appreciate
Great
it.
conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well,
just
Heather's
getting
up
started.
next. Heather's up next month, and she's going to be doing remote presentation on remote viewing. And I've experienced a couple of her remote viewings, and they're fascinating. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Sphinx.
Yeah.
The Sphinx in Antarctica. Woohoo!
Ooh,
Pretty cool.
I'm looking
But
that.
anyway,
It is.
ladies,
It's
thank you.
cool.
Thank you, ladies, all for being here. I so appreciate that we can do this every month. And we have agreed to extend it through next year as well. So I'm looking forward to that and trying to figure out what subjects we're going to pick next year.
Yeah.
I know. I pick a subject, and then when I get there, I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And I know we all do that, don't we? Because they seem so huge once you start working on it.
Yes.
It's enormous. But thanks again, everyone that showed up today. We so appreciate all of you in the chat. Please go out and shine your light and go get your reincarnation.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't get a chance to put anything in the description. Can I just recommend, if you
Absolutely.
enjoyed today's presentation, I recommend the Old Souls Guidebook. And this is by Ainsley MacLeod. Excellent. Excellent.
Can you just put it in the comments after the video?
I'll do it after the video. And then, of course, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. So
beautiful.
We just got started. Basically.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. I just want to continue, encourage everyone to continue your journey of learning, and then come back and share it with us.
Oh yeah, we love to hear stories, and you can always come on one of our shows and talk about it too.
Yes.
And I believe, because I don't think I've had near as many life regressions as any of the others, but I think that they're very important And when you're ready, you should do them.
Highly recommend it.
Good.
All righty. Well, I'll say goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.